Hi, this is Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today, my guest is JT Molloy. I hope I got that right.
Yes, you did.
All right, awesome. So, what's up, man?
Not too much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no
Just
problem.
chilling, doing comic stuff. Yep. Very cool. Yeah, I'm an indie comic artist. I write and draw a book called The Sapphire Spectre. It's about a girl from Chicago who can like die on command, enter the spirit world as her own ghost, fight evil demons and ghosts and stuff, and come back to her body and be alive again. That's kind of like the basic premise. And I'm on my eighth issue right now on Kickstarter, and it's been doing pretty good. Been funding pretty well. For like my level, I guess, of notoriety, and yeah, it's cool. I'm also a project manager over at Ethereal Comics, run by Dustin Brunell, and they have tons and tons of indie comic titles. So they've been really good to me too. So that's cool.
Really awesome. So, with the book that you have out right now, are you saying you write it and you also draw it? Like, do you have a
Yeah.
whole team involved, or is it just you?
No, that book is just that's all me, 100% me. I write, draw, color, letter, everything.
Holy shit. Well, back in the day, that used to be way more of a hassle. Like, I remember doing lettering with that little
Oh yeah,
lettering, so now
right.
you just do it all online.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so, how many pages is your work, and is it black and white or color?
It's color. I've thought of black and white, but I'm like, no, it's the Sapphire Spectre. They need to be able to see that she's blue. So,
But
I can't get
that's
out of
another
that
thing
one.
that's evolved. Just a side note is like I remember comics used to have that four color print all the time. Now people do all this amazing stuff with like computer color.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've gone to completely drawing digital too. Like I used to actually draw the pages in ink and pencil and scan them and then color them digitally, but now I just straight up draw digitally, and it's gotten a whole lot. It's a whole lot faster. I don't have to make
Yeah.
like an event out of it, like set up my stuff, get the lighting going, all that stuff. Now it's like while my wife is watching TV shows, I can sit there and just jam out the pages, on my
But
iPad.
I know a lot of people were doing the thing where they like do the tight sketches and scan it in and then they ink it digitally. But yeah, you're
Right,
doing the
right.
whole thing now?
Yep, totally. It's it's
Okay.
it's kind of easier too because like then I get to sometimes I just get to build as I go. I don't finish the whole thing first. Sometimes I just finish a panel and color it first, and then just go. Just I can just do it in any order. Like it's really nice that way.
Okay. Um, I remember like when I first looked in comics, like for a while I wanted to be a comic artist and I was doing everything. It was like a 11 by 17 burst board, and I used like indie ink. Was that kind of what you did?
Yep, definitely what I was doing. Yeah, and
So
then
to
I
keep it roughly the same size. I mean, obviously it's not an indie ink and burst board, but the same dimensions, like 11 by 17.
yeah, totally.
Okay. And how many pages would you say there are per issue?
24, sometimes 28 if it's just taking a while to tell the story or if I have a backup story or something. I got the issues right here too. So this is back when I was doing it, like pencil and ink and
Okay.
coloring digital. And by the time I've gotten to the newest one, the seventh one, featuring the Mothman, by the way, it's kind of like a
Uh,
Chicago legend these days. Uh, yeah, now it's like fully
Isn't
digital.
there isn't there a movie
It's a
with
little bit cleaner.
oh cool.
Yeah.
Isn't there a movie I forget who's in it, but there it's called The Mothman?
Yeah, there's the Mothman prophecies. I've actually never seen that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I've just kind of like read articles, like it's become like a local legend in Chicago. I know there's a place out east coast on the east coast too that like has that's kind of where it all started, that small town. But it's kind of become a Chicago thing in the past 10 years, and like I don't know, I don't even know if I necessarily believe in the supernatural, but it's fun to think about, and like
Right.
fun to read about. It's like one of those things. It's you almost kind of hope it's true, because it would be more fun that way.
Well,
But
I think like I'm not religious at all, but there's a lot of really weird stuff out there. So
same. Yep.
there's a lot of stuff that is possible, and there's a lot of stuff that's like been some other creature, and they interpreted something like a kind of legend of unicorns came up because they found the washed up bones of a narwhal. So they figured, oh, yeah, what is that? And then they made up the unicorn. So
Right.
yeah, people misidentify stuff and all sorts of weird stuff. They always find like strange creatures that exist like 60,000 feet down or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Oh yeah, the deep ocean might as well be outer space.
Well, that's what Lovecraft said.
Yeah.
Like Lovecraft, we're talking about how I think it's like 80% of our oceans are unexplored.
Yeah.
But going back to your project, so what's the premise? Is there like are there several tales, or is it one tale, or what's going on with it?
Yeah, right now, like digitally, through the Kickstarter, I've got like some of the old graphic novels I did of it that I used to have on Comixology, but like I've got like a general series going on now that started with issue one back in 2019 or so. And that has been like kind of like the main focus now. And like it is individual stories, like it's almost like Monster of the Week, like self-contained, but there's like stuff I'm sprinkling in there that's going to start expanding it into something bigger. So I'm just kind of like it's almost like a little, it's like it's starting out episodic and turning into serialized as it goes, So because I wanted people to be able to get a whole story out of one issue, but also build something as it goes to something big, So
But is it all like one kind of continuous linked together story? Like even if
yeah,
you don't have to read the entire thing to get the story, are they all kind of like part of the same continuity?
there is. Yeah, there's definitely a huge continuity going and like a master plan that I've had for a number of years now. So yeah, it's all going somewhere fun. And
The
the
master
latest issue is
plan,
yeah,
like Doctor Evil master plan,
yeah, right.
But so do you have like a writing like authors that inspired you? Like would you say it was like more like your writing styles along the lines of like I don't know Alan Moore or like would it be more along the lines of like Mike Mignola or like is there something that inspired you both in writing and in art?
Yeah, definitely art. Like I worship at the altar of J. Scott Campbell. Love that dude. Ever since
Oh,
Gen
he's
13
awesome.
and
Yeah.
yeah, ever since Gen 13 in the 90s, like in
Hmm.
through Danger Girl and all that stuff. And then like I think I always say that the comic that kind of broke my brain like in a good way when I was like a teenager
In a
in
good way.
the late 90s expanded my brain, whatever you want to say. It was like Michael Turner with Witchblade.
Okay.
So like Witchblade and Fathom and that kind of like Top Cow image kind of era, like
Mhm.
that was the first time I read that Witchblade trade paperback. I was reading it in high school in study hall or something, and I was like, "Whoa!" That was like reading a movie on
Yeah.
paper, and it had sexy chicks all over the place. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's just so awesome, and like before and after that, I loved Spider Man and the X Men and stuff, and Superman, Batman also, but like. Yeah, that was the one that kind of got me into like, oh, there's other stuff going on, and that got me into like Gen 13 Spawn, like yeah, Witchblade, Fathom, like that whole thing, and into indie comics in general. So yeah, I've always been like, and even Calvin and Hobbes, like I've always loved that growing up, like the way Bill Watterson drew and wrote, you know what I mean, and like just his
Yeah. No,
outlook on
his
life and
stuff is
stuff.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of his. So,
Were you into
but yeah,
any of the earlier indie stuff, like like the Crow or like Cerebus or like Carrot, the Flaming Carrot or anything like that?
yeah, The Crow, absolutely, because like I mean. Yeah, I'm kind of like I'm 43, so I was like a teenager in the mid 90s and into the early 2000s. So I was like prime age to be wearing black t-shirts of rock and roll bands and watching The Crow all the time. You know what I mean? And then like,
Right.
once I saw The Crow, I was like, oh, I got to read this. So then I read it and I was like, oh, this is even crazier. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Right. Well,
definitely always.
I read The Crow first, and then I remember when the movie came out, and of course, if you read the original source material, you're like, it wasn't as good because I mean, it rarely is, but they got to make some changes for movies because they can incorporate an entire graphic novel into like 2 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of nuance from the book was missing in the movie, but the movie's still a classic, and like, but yeah, and then like the whole like black and white kind of goth thing. Like somewhere in the late '90s, I was like in summer school, and like this goth guy that I like had to befriend. Like you find like somebody the closest weirdo to your wavelength in
Right.
class to survive that ordeal. He kept bringing in Johnny the Homicidal Maniac comics, and so
Awesome.
I
Amazingly
went through a
underrated. Like
yeah, so I went through
I
a
can't believe that they hired that's Johan Vasquez. I can't believe they hired him to do Invader Zim. It's
I
like,
know,
what made you think that the guy who did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac would do a kid show?
yeah. So
On Nickelodeon.
I was into Johnny Squee, I Feel Sick, all that stuff, and then like I remember summer 2001. I was at my buddy's house, and he had younger brothers, and they were watching Nickelodeon, and that came on Invader Zim, and I was like, that looks like Johnny the This looks like Jonan Vasquez. Is this Jonan Vasquez? And I waited for the credits, and I saw his name, and I was like, who gave him a kids show? Like, what is wrong with him?
Exactly, yeah.
I was
Did
like,
you see the
who's
episode Boots and Doom with like Santa Claus?
yeah. That was awesome.
Like I think that show was revelatory, and I know a lot of people complained, but like it was kind of the complaint, like the same thing with people complained about Henry Cavill on The Witcher. I don't know if you saw The Witcher, but the complaint is like, so Henry Cavill was like, he read all the books, very into The Witcher. He had a vision. Johan Vasquez had a vision, and then people were like, "Oh yeah, well, for TV you should do this, and for the audience you should do." They're like, "No, no, this is the vision." And then eventually everybody gets mad and they quit. So
Yeah.
that's unfortunately what happened with Invader Zim. That's unfortunately what
Did it
happened with
have?
The Witcher.
I never knew about the behind the scenes on Invader Zim because I remember some of the earlier episodes. Like, even though it was like rated G or whatever, it like still had
It broke the
his like
boundaries.
warped sense of humor come
Right,
through.
right.
I remember there would be like an ice cream truck driving by in their neighborhood and would be like, "You like ice cream? You will buy ice cream." You know what I mean? It's like this authoritarian voice or something. It was
Yeah.
hilarious.
And people they would die, but it wouldn't be like horribly graphic and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of underground stuff. But yeah, so what I heard is I heard like people complain that he was very controlling. It's like I kind of like I've seen interviews with the guy, like I don't know him personally, but where it seems like he had his vision. He wanted his vision represented a certain way. I know a lot of comic artists have had that problem. Like Frank Miller, when he first went to Hollywood, and right after The Dark Knight blew up so big, they asked him to write RoboCop 2. And,
yeah,
RoboCop 1 was amazing, blew my mind. I've
yep.
probably seen it like 20 times.
Same. I love
But
RoboCop. I was just talking about it the other day.
they asked him to write RoboCop 2. He's like, of course. So when he wrote it, and they go, okay, well, you did your best, but you don't know Hollywood. So then they brought somebody else to rewrite Frank Miller. Frank Miller did his prime. And so
Right.
the guy rewrites it, and then it was crap. And everybody's like, it's crap. So then they went back to Frank Miller. They're like, can you rewrite it and have someone visit it? Frank Miller's like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So then they got a third person. So if you watch the movie, all three authors are credited. And it wasn't, he's
Yeah.
like, I'm never going to deal with Hollywood ever again. And then Rodriguez, when he did Sin City, he said, I will give you the chance to direct it with me. And
Yeah.
that was the only way he got him in.
Yeah, Sin City was kind of his like Hollywood revenge because I mean, hats
Hats
off to Rodriguez for like for actually like getting him like a co-director credit and all that stuff. Like I think he got kicked out of the guild over that.
He got kicked out of the Directors Association for that.
Like that's how I wish more comic book adaptations happened. You know what I mean? It's like because Sin City is like that's like a direct translation to what's on the page to what's on the screen. With only the tiniest bit of alterations, like somebody's hairstyle or something. You know what I mean? Like instead of being early '90s, it was mid 2000s. It was like, but that doesn't matter. That's just the side stuff. Like the meat and potatoes is all there. It was totally cool.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to condense like the first three graphic novels into like one movie. I wish they'd done one because I thought it was an awesome story. But I mean, you can nitpick everything, but it was a good movie. is
Yeah,
definitely a good, translation. So let's get back to your stuff. So we're going to talk about Frank Miller all day. Um,
that's okay.
we could. I could talk about like Alan Moore, Frank Miller, a bunch of like comic nerd stuff all
Oh yeah.
fucking day. Um, but all right, so you say you're on the eighth issue. How often does it come out? So how long have you been working on this?
I've been working on this particular series of it for 5 or 6 years now. Probably 6 years. Yeah,
Okay.
like I wish it could happen faster. It's just I'm such a one man show with this. Um, well, it's really a 2 man show because like my friend Lisa Malone, God, God bless her, like helps me like a whole lot on the campaigns and stuff. But yeah, like it's probably like
Like
twice a year.
social marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's probably like twice a year if I'm lucky, like 3 times a year. So it's like because it's like you kickstart the thing, it's got to be done, and I always make sure it's like at least 90% done before I even kickstart it. Um, the actual story, and then it's like you got to wait after it's over to get your money, and then you got to use the money to get it printed and like the extra stuff printed, like the prints and the little stickers and stuff that you give people,
Right.
and then you gotta find time to get everybody, me and Lisa together, print out every order, which these days is around 150 to 200, around that amount of backers, and we have to sit at my table, sort all this stuff out, pack them, ship them, and it costs a lot of money to ship too. You know what I mean? You got to save some aside for taxes, all that stuff, and then physically lift a bunch of boxes to the post office and send them off, and then it's like a week or two before people get them. So it's like by the time all what I just said is over, it could be like 3 straight months or whatever. It's like I wish I could just get them out like that, but I don't know. That's what you got to deal with. But
Wait,
yeah, no,
wait.
people have been really responsive. Like people love the story. I can tell they're actually reading it and stuff. So that's cool because like I don't do nude covers. You know what I mean? Like I work for Ethereal and they do it. It's not like it's not a moral thing. It's more like that's just not what I'm going for with my particular book. So it's like I'm just kind of getting everybody excited about artists that are on the covers, but also I want them excited about what's inside, and that's why I do. Like I really, really, really care about the story and the character and stuff like that, and I think people can tell that when like I'm writing it. So
Yeah, I don't think you really need the busty hero seller for anything that pulls it back because like maybe you got an interesting story to tell. Like, oh, it's just another big busty girl,
right, and you can do both. You know what I mean? Like Ethereal's got great comics and boobs, but like I'm just going for the one thing, just because I said I grew up in that Witchblade kind of era, and I want to keep it like there's sexy elements to it. You know what I mean? Like there's some like cleavagey type covers and stuff, but it's still like um, at the end of the day, I'm really trying to tell like a story with it, and
Okay.
yeah, so. But it's pretty fun, and this character's back in the 8th issue. This is her like arch nemesis, like kind of like Spider-Man as Venom, or I always say Darkwing Duck as Negaduck. Uh, she's got the Violet Void, so she's back in issue 8, and it's like really kind of like Cape Fear, stocky kind of stuff in that one. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, cool. So and you're saying you also work for Ethereum Comics, is that what you said?
Ethereal, yeah.
Ethereal? So what do you do there?
So I'm like project manager, but I'm like managing their Kickstarters and stuff. Like I've been doing work with them. I designed their logo like a couple years ago, and I've been friends with Dustin Brunel like for a while now. I've gone down to his house in Nashville. We did a con together. Coolest dude in the world. He writes all his books, and he's just got a gaggle of artists like working for him now. And I was one of them, and I'm still am. I'm coloring one of his books called Theater 7 right now, and I drew a few issues of Greed, his comic. And yeah, they're just doing cool stuff over there. So I'm handling their Kickstarters, and I'm kind of in charge of some art direction stuff now, and just starting to kind of pick up. They trust me, they like me, so they're keeping me on to do some more cool stuff with them because they're starting to really grow as a brand. So that's cool.
How many comics did it put out? Is it mainly one guy's vision or is it a bunch of different artists?
It's turning into a lot of artists, even though the central guy is Dustin Brunell. So yeah, he like comes up with all the titles and he's writing most of them. He's writing all of them, but he's starting to kind of let some people script some stuff on the side. But he's kind of like the ringleader and like the voice of it all. And yeah, but like I've worked with him and he's just great because he's the kind of writer you want to work with as a comic book artist, because he just says like, all right, pages this through this, make them do this. He doesn't micromanage what the panel count is going to be.
Stan Lee, like, you know, had, well, there was the Marvel method, which was apparently very loose, and then there was the like when Stan Lee would micromanage it, like they have to say this, they have to face this way, you know.
Right.
So I guess there are different approaches to it, but you're saying he's pretty open, he's pretty free with everything, which is good.
Totally. And that's kind of how I work with myself too, is like I vaguely script it out before I start drawing, and then I add all the dialogue later, you know.
Right.
So I know generally what they're thinking, and if I think of a cool exchange or line, I'll actually write it down.
Well, it kind of helps that you crafted the whole story, so you know where it goes, you know what should be highlighted, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I work in I'm not currently working in it, but for 20 years I worked in television editing and video editing and stuff. So I do a lot of like animation. So like I always call it like story keyframes. Like if you work in animation, you know what a keyframe is, where it's like they start here, you add a keyframe here, and so like everything in between is, you know, what gets you there. So I do that with storytelling too, where I'm like, I have a beginning and an end in my head, and then I'll be like, I'll think of a cool moment that should happen 2/3 of the way through the story. So I'll skip ahead and I'll draw that moment, and then I'll connect the two and be like, all right, now I need to like get from here to here, because this is the cool part, but I need to like make sure that everything in between here like flows, you know. So
it's kind of funny because I do illustrated books, so I kind of do the same thing in a way. Like, you know, I'll be like, you know, this would make an awesome illustration. I'm like, all right, I have to go back into the book and like write it in this way so that it makes the illustration more awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
But hey, end of the day, whatever works. You know.
Right. Yeah, it's like connecting the dots, you know.
Yeah. So Ethereal, are they more of like they are a traditional publisher like Marvel or DC? You know, like do they run a Kickstarter for every issue that comes out, and then they raise the funds to like put out the new one?
They do every 2 weeks. So I'm kind of like building a Kickstarter for them every 2 weeks, and yeah, this is a recent development. So I'm in the middle. I was doing the second one today that I'm doing for them. So it's like they do every 2 weeks, and then it's just a group of like 4 or 5 of us that just kind of keep everything together, like make sure this artist gets their pages in, this colorist gets their pages in, that, you know, that kind of thing, and just building it as it goes. And yeah, other backers keep coming back, so like, you know, they're doing something right. And the books themselves are just super fun. Like they're mostly adult rated, you know, but like you know, if that's your thing, like and it occasionally is my thing.
A lot of people are going kind of indie these days. Like my friend Brian Keane, he's a big horror author, and you know, I get to a lot of horror conventions, so I see him there. But he not only like a well polished author, but he's also the owner of a local comic shop. And he says in his comic shop, Marvel Comics sell like they make up like 3 or 4% of the sales.
Yeah,
it's all indie comics.
Right. I think a lot of comic fans are kind of heading that direction, you know, like Marvel just ain't bringing it like they used to. Like I think they're kind of antagonistic toward their base, which is really odd, you know. Like,
well, I remember. I mean, I'm old, but I remember when there was like the black and white explosion with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and everybody kind of went bankrupt because they're like buying all this stuff that would like never go anywhere. Like, so everybody had like boxes full of comics that they couldn't sell, they couldn't get rid of. They were just like, you know, bad clones of like indie comics. But back then, it was a lot more like you put a lot more money. Everything was a lot different. Like these days, you can do so much digital. So then I remember, you know, it started to go indie. Then, you know, everybody started trusting the majors more because you weren't going bankrupt over them. And then you had people like Frank Miller and Alan Moore and stuff. But then Frank Miller and Alan Moore, which they fucked up for hardcore, especially Alan Moore. So I know that DC was going bankrupt. Like even when I interviewed with them, it was like they only wanted superheroes. So they were about to go bankrupt, and then the movie saved them. But I
Yeah,
think that's dying down now. People are like, dude, how many times do you do the same movie? Like 5 times.
I know. They're shooting themselves in the foot in a lot of very strange ways. It's also
Yeah.
kind of funny that it's just like these days, like if you want to kind of make it like make a living off of comics, you're better off doing it yourself and just making some cool friends and stuff. Because like,
Oh, they
um,
don't pay shit.
yeah, no, they don't. Like not only from like a numbers standpoint, but they literally won't pay people. Like I have friends that work for Marvel and like they like are like, yeah, I drew a cover 3 years ago. I still haven't seen a check. You know what I mean? Like, they're just not literally not paying them. You know,
Well,
it's so
and
strange.
I've interviewed some of my idols when I was growing up, like Walt Simonson, who the
Oh,
famous
cool.
one, the Thor, and really nice guy, but he teaches at art school because Marvel kept all the rights to everything, so he is nothing.
Yeah, then there's
And
that. Yep.
I interviewed Steve Bissett, and like the art team of Steve Bissett and John Taubman when they did those Alan Moore Swamp things, like that is my favorite art team of all time. That heavily influenced my style of drawing. And I interviewed Steve Bissett. He also teaches at art school because DC kept all the rights.
Right.
And you could go on like Alan Moore. They fucked him over so hardcore. He's like, my advice to anybody that wants to go into comics is don't do it.
I know. It's like it's so easy to be cynical, but I just love it so much that I just do it anyway. You know, like
Right. Well, he's probably also thinking like back when you basically had to go to like one of the big names, or else you couldn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have it way easy these days. Like indie comic people, like as much as a lot of them complain, and sometimes rightfully so. Like, but we have it a lot easier than our predecessors did. You know what I mean? I
Oh
watched like
yeah.
some
But even
documentaries
somebody
on
like
YouTube. Like,
Kickstarter and Indiegogo, that didn't
yeah,
exist years ago.
I looked at, you know what I mean? I've watched some like documentaries on like, James O'Barr and the Crow and like Wendy Peeney and like Elf Quest and everything they had to do just to get their vision out. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's like, my God, like if I'm sticking it out, they really had to stick it out back then. You know what I mean? Like, because they didn't have all these platforms that we do now, like it's just, it's not that it's easy, it's easier now. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, that it makes it a little bit easier to find talent. 'Cause, like, I remember when I went to art school, and my teacher's like, "Well, who's your favorite?" I'm like, "Well, I like Frank Frazetta stuff a lot." And he's like, "Well, for every Frazetta, there were 10 people that were better than him. They just never made it."
Yeah. Right.
And it's gotten easier to get your stuff out. Not that you don't still need to put it out, because you do need to put it out. But all right, man. So, do you have like a website people can go to? They have a way they can like look up your stuff and shovel money your way.
Yeah, totally. I've got, can I do, sharing's not turned on. Okay. If you just go to sapphiresspectre.com, it'll take you to the newest Kickstarter, which is number 8, which ends in 2 weeks. So just June something or other, June 3rd, I think. I'm opening the calendar thingy here. Uh,
But just so everyone knows, if it takes Kickstarter, you can still add funds afterwards. You can still contribute to the campaign after it ends.
yeah, I think I can't remember if I turn on late pledges or not. I'm scatterbrained right now. Sorry, bro. But yeah,
Well, for
sapphiresspectre.com and Spectre spelled with a R-E, like that up there.
no, yeah.
Oh, this is Erin Miklo, by the way. She's a really cool punk rock chick. Like, she, I became friends with her through Instagram and just bullshitting with her. And she ended up coming out to Chicago, having some drinks with me last year with her boyfriend. And I can't believe she actually like agreed to be on that cover because it's totally cool. She's kind of like the punk rock model, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So that was a lot of fun. I do like cosplayers for like every campaign, and
Okay.
was really honored to have her on there because I'm a huge punk rock dork. You can see my black flag and stuff back there that
Yeah,
I
that
just
was
printed out
actually
and made
the
myself.
second tattoo I ever got was that black flag.
Oh, was it? I only have
Yeah,
one tab, man. It's the germs circle.
yeah. I tell people when they ask how many tattoos I have, I'm like, I'm working on one. It's taking me a while, but I'm working on one. But yeah, no, I have like a Black Flag, I have Sick and Roll. I have a bunch of like that's kind of early punk stuff. You know,
Oh yeah,
like
dude. The earlier the better for me. I love Sick of It All so much. I've one of the funniest people I ever met in my life was Lou from Sick of It All. Because like he like
he
jumped
used
off
to
the
go
stage.
to my gym. I mean, I'm in
Yeah,
New York, so he used to go to my gym. Yeah,
right.
but
Yeah, I
I've met
jumped in.
almost everyone in the band. Yeah, they're super nice.
Yeah, he's such a like a happy shit talker. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, maybe that's a New York thing or something, but it's like I was talking to him in the
It
crowd. And
is.
I'm like, I was like, man, awesome show. Like, I haven't seen you guys in a couple of years. And he's like, oh yeah, when? And I was like 7 years ago. And he's like, we've been here since then. When were you?
Yeah,
I was like,
that's very
oh,
New York. That's very New York. Yeah, but like they're not even mean. They just like people just say whatever. They say what's on their
yeah.
mind. Yeah, it's not. You know, they're not trying to drag you to the dirt with it. But all right, man. So yeah, thanks for doing this.
Mhm.
Do you have any other links? Like you have a website and a Kickstarter. Do you have anything else?
SapphireSpectre.com usually takes you to whatever is going on at the moment. I'm trying to rebuild a store of mine right now. But yeah, for now, the Kickstarter is, I guess, the most important thing. So, yep.
Okay, with the comics are printed, do you have a like? I talked to a lot of people like Carissa Grant and you know stuff, and they say that they don't like the way the Amazon print stuff, so they use somebody else to print them.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I use a local printer called Rink in Indiana. So, and I live in the West Chicago suburbs. So, thankfully, I just drive and pick them up. So I don't even got to worry about shipping. I just drive the 2.5 hours to get to Indiana, pick them up, and bring them back. So I use local printing, so none of that tariff stuff is going to affect it or whatever. You know.
And when you run the Kickstarter, do you offer like PDFs as well, like they can buy it digitally?
Yeah, definitely. I even offer like right now I'm doing like digital drawings for people who back the a certain tier of the digital rewards. So that's kind of fun. That's a new thing.
Yeah, no, awesome. All right, well, anything else you wanted to throw in there to the social media sphere?
I think we've covered it all.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you very much.